We'll find out. As I mentioned here a minute ago, Rich is really the one that started that. He really does. You go back to his first coaching job. I think it was at Glenville State. It might have been Glenville. He's the reason for all this. He's the reason for all this. So, we haven't studied him that close just yet. We're really starting tomorrow. But he has all the tempo. He's as fast as he wants to be. And that's a concern. That's a concern, particularly the conditioning piece. Anytime you play in a bowl game, although this is an earlier bowl game, I always worry about the conditioning. So, yeah, that's a legitimate concern of ours, the tempo.
What were your first thoughts?
At Arizona? Yeah, I've watched them so much, because they played Nevada earlier in the season. I've watched them on television. They played UTSA early in the season. I watched them against Arizona State. I watched that tape earlier, long before we knew we were even in a bowl game or we were going to play them in a bowl game. So we're pretty familiar with what they do. We've studied their defense a lot. As I mentioned, Jeff Castile, their defensive coordinator, is a 3-3-5 original guy. Their secondary coach, David Lockwood, coached for me at Notre Dame. And then certainly on offense, Rich does what Rich has done. It's a spread, up-tempo, run the ball first. I think every year since he's probably been in coaching, he's had a 1,000-yard runner. And then there's good players. You look at the big, tall wide receivers. You look at their skill position players. Their offensive tackles are huge. They're what you expect the Pac-12 school to look like. And you can't help but notice they beat Utah here just a couple weeks ago late in the season. So they're going to be a handful for us.
Coach just talked about the uniqueness of the Lobos, and how there hasn't been a team that's similar to you guys that they've played all year. Does that uniqueness help you guys out in a quick tournament?
I think it helps us to some degree. That's why we do it. I've mentioned for us in our niche, I do think we have to be different. In some ways, it hurts you a little bit because you don't have tape on exactly how they would defend that style of offense, so you're projecting what that's going to be. But there's only so many ways you can play the option. We've kind of researched Jeff Castile. We researched Arizona. They really haven't played an option team. So we're really kind of guessing. So I think it helps us. Obviously, that's why we're in it. But then in some ways, preparation-wise, it's hard to be as exact. Of course, defensively, we know what they're going to do on offense. The problem is they are really, really good. I think they're 17th maybe in total offense in this country, up there very high in rushing offense.
When you talked about the home run, explosiveness, in a game like this, you love those big plays.
Yeah.
Does it help to be consistent?
That's been a problem. I don't minimize the fact that we've not been real consistent ball control kind of offense. It's not by choice that we're kind of hit and miss. We understand the problem. A lot of it goes back, as you guys know, to the offensive line situation, which started early in the season. Some of it is we're not as precise running the option, honestly, as we've been. So it is a concern. Every game we've played, it's really been that way. We've had a hard time controlling the ball. We've had a hard time putting the game away late in games when you really need to be in kind of a 4-minute mode. So that's something we continue to work on, and it's a big project for ours, particularly in the off season.
When you were out recruiting, could you sense and hear and feel kind of a different response from kids and parents based on the season you've had?
I don't know different, but I think there's more of a credibility issue there that it can get done and that it will be done and that the plan works. We've been on the radar, we really have, but I think we're in the pool more with kids that have maybe more options. It seems to me right now that I think we can go head to head with some schools that have played in bowl games and have consistently won. It hasn't changed it dramatically because the reception has been pretty good since we've been here. But I do sense just a little more credibility, which in the end I think hopefully will help us because you guys know what this is. We have to improve and we have to seize and capture this momentum that we have going forward. This is just kind of a little springboard for us. So more important than what this game is the byproducts of being in this game and where we head next year and the year after because we obviously have a long way to go, but at least there's a foundation there of credibility that hopefully we can take advantage of it. Hopefully. If we don't take advantage of it, we'll be just like we've been. If we do take advantage of it, we'll continue to grow this program.
Any more special that your first bowl game as the Lobo head coach? You're playing Arizona. That's one of the helmets that's in your office. It was your first full-time job as an assistant, and it's against the Wildcats.
Well, as I said, I was kind of hoping it was going to be Conference USA rather than Pac-12. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you I'm the happiest guy in the world. But now that it has been announced, I think it is a great matchup. I really do. I think it's good for the community that it is Arizona. I think it's good for the community and really our program that it is a Pac-12 school. My first priority wouldn't have been quite a Pac-12 school on just a win-loss situation. And, I mean, Tucson's special to me. I was a kid that grew up in Pittsburgh. My dad worked in the steel mills 40 years. Joanne's dad worked at Marquette Cement right down on Neville Island, blue collar as we come. And then for me to go out to Arizona and see that, and see mountains and see sunshine and see a lot of things, that changed my life. That's why we ended up living in Scottsdale when I had the opportunity with ESPN, and probably why I'm at New Mexico is, Tucson, Arizona, coming from Pittsburgh. With the world I lived. I'd never flown on an airplane. I'd never been out of the state of Pennsylvania as a kid. I'd never been anywhere. Tucson made a huge impression on Joanne and I. So, yeah, I mean, U of A is special to me.
Coach, where's the line between really enjoying yourself and winning the football?
It's all winning the football game. It really is. I had a chance, these last 2 days I was in Texas, drove through Oklahoma, drove up into Wichita, and I was really by myself going out recruiting, following up on kids that had made visits, and I had a lot of time to just sit there and drive. I probably drove 8 hours total and just think about the big picture, but you don't think about it much until you start thinking about Arizona and Rich Rodriguez and tempo and how are we going to stop them and what are they going to play on defense against us and how are our kids doing in finals. We started finals. So there's not much time to enjoy it. The enjoyment's winning, and it always goes back to that game and that matchup. That's why it's a great matchup. It's a great game, but I understand what a tremendous a challenge it is.
Similar question, Coach, but the big picture, I mean, obviously there's still work to do, and this is just part of what your ultimate goal is, but how good does it feel to reach that next run?
Yeah, like I said, it gives us, I think it was very well how you said that, the next run. Again, just because you get to that rung doesn't mean you'll stay at that rung. We can just as easily go backwards. We played a lot of close games this year. The football gods smiled on us at times this year. I don't deny that. I do think we got better as the year went on, but this will only be important to us if we take advantage of this and build on this. If we don't, we're going to be right back where we were. So I look at it more like an opportunity and a bit of a springboard, but I also know the challenges. We're not the only team in this league playing in a bowl game. Most of them are. In fact, all but one in our division that we're in the Mountain Division, is playing in a bowl game, right? So we've got an opportunity that others have. We just have to take more advantage of it than the others do.
Coach, do you see this as redemption after your experience in Notre Dame, and then you come in here and say you're going to rebuild the program? Like getting here is...
Nah, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
What's the biggest change you've seen in college football since you started coaching?
Tempo, up-tempo offense, spread offense is the single biggest change I've seen. And honestly, Rich Rodriguez, I'm not saying that because I'm coaching against him and trying to say the right things. He's a big part of that. That's the single biggest change I've seen is tempo, spread, and then the quarterback run element added into it with the zone read and the RPO, the run-pass option. So everybody's running a form of option. It's just option running or throwing it as the play develops. That's the biggest thing.
Coach, you mentioned your O-line. You mentioned your O-line. Is that going to be a part of your recruiting class? Focusing on O-line?
Huge. It's number one focus for us right now. Fortunately, we have 5 mid-year slots that we can bring players in at mid-year, and our total focus is on offensive line. I spent the last 2 days, all those miles I put on my car and my body were in pursuit of offensive linemen. Yeah, it's huge.
Coach, how much will you draw upon the last time you met him?
I remember like it was yesterday. It was a kind of a rainy day in South Bend. I think it was Rich's first year at West Virginia. They broke a couple long runs on us, which wouldn't surprise you guys that have watched us. That's been pretty much what it's been. We did have an onside kick against them that was successful because we were afraid we couldn't stop them. So we had to go onside kick early in the game and got an extra possession. We played a lot of man. We played a lot of man free. And they schemed us up a little bit and hit a couple big runs. But we played pretty good. We won the game, and I think it was in a period where we won 3 straight. We beat Pittsburgh, we beat West Virginia, and we beat USC. We had 3 home games in a row right there and kind of got our season back in track. But I remember more about going to visit Rich when I was at ESPN and going in and watching them practice, watching their pregame, how they do things. He's got some unique things he does of team building and some things that I've taken with me, that I've used myself.
Coach, I'd like to just ask about practice since this is a short, early bowl game. How many actual days will you get to practice?
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly. We practiced last Saturday we practiced for 18 periods, I believe. We're going to practice Friday night. It'll be in shorts, 1 hour, just like it's a new game week, because they're done with finals on Friday. Some kids are graduating Friday, and we're going to get together Friday night. Short practice, and we're going to practice Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, regular full pad practices. We're going to get a Monday off, and we're going to go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just like it's game week.
Coach, kind of on the practice schedule, do you feel like you're maybe at a little bit of advantage because you don't have that travel in the schedule?
No, absolutely not. I think you can look at it a lot of different ways. We played an extra week in the season. They finished up against Arizona State a week early. They started practice a little bit earlier than us this week, which I probably would have done if we would have had 2 weeks off. They have finals next week. All those things factor in a little bit, I go back to my last bowl game as a coach. It was against Oregon State in the Fiesta Bowl, and I thought we practiced too much, and I thought we practiced too long, and I thought we got the kids and the coaches a little bit too burnt out doing the same things and practicing the same things over and over. So we're going to try to be a little fresher, try to be a little bit more excited to play than maybe we were the last time I did this.
How about just the dynamic you compare to the Fiesta Bowl and the ECS Bowl compared to just New Mexico, just the difference between those kind of.
I've been to them all. I don't mean that egotistically, but I think in 25 years in coaching, I'd probably been to whatever that number is as a coach, 20 maybe. And then I broadcasted them all, from the Rose Bowl to the National Championship to the Sugar Bowl. The reason I got back in coaching, because it was about the coaching. I don't care, again, if there's 75,000, 100,000, or it's called this, or it's a playoff bowl game, it's all about the coaching and all about the matchups. And back to Lee's question, really, it's all about winning the game and competing in the game. So it's all the same. It's exactly the same to me right now as it was playing Oregon State in the BCS bowl game the last time we did it.
Coach, how much is this giving back to the community? Playing at home in a bowl?
I hope it is. I hope it is. I can remember my first press conference here and all the places that I've spoken here in town about what I've learned through this whole process of what I've done as a coach, and even more so as a broadcaster, just how important football can be to a community. It's so important. I've lived the life of a broadcaster of what the economy and what restaurants are like the night before a big college football game. I've lived it after the game, where you go in places after the game and the team lost at home and nobody's there, and it's like a funeral. I've been there when teams have won in their community, and it's like you can't sell enough alcohol and you can't sell enough food. I know what football can do for communities. I know what it can do. And again, hopefully, through us improving, us putting a better product on the field, we can experience that here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. If we don't, we don't. But hopefully that's a byproduct of me coaching my team better. Not me going out and trying to generate it and trying to do all the public relations things, but me coaching my team better, that more people will come enjoy college football by us playing better and winning.